I've been reflecting on this question a lot, and
What kind of leader are you still trying to become?
I see this also as a push from the younger generation. First of all, one thing that I learned in my journey is that there is a lot to grow.
Welcome to the final episode of our be-teachable leadership series with Marco Zima Simonella. Over the past 2 episodes, we've been on a journey together. We started by exploring what it really takes to become a leader, why feeling unprepared doesn't mean you're not ready, and how the right mentors can completely change your career, and why leadership begins with self-awareness. Then, we shifted our focus to one of the hardest transitions every leader faces, learning to let go. We talked about delegation, trust, coaching, and why the goal of leadership isn't to become indispensable, but it's to help other people grow. Today, we bring that journey to a close by exploring what I believe is one of the most challenging aspects of leadership, making decisions when there isn't a perfect answer. Marco shares the mindset and frameworks that have helped him navigate uncertainty, why changing your mind isn't a sign of weakness, and how great leaders balance confidence with humility. So let's dive in.
How do you make decisions when you don't have enough information?
Yeah, funny enough, I've sometimes I've seen both cases. I've seen leaders which they are all about speed. We have to decide and we have to decide fast. And I've seen leaders. Actually, most of my leaders or the managers I had are more in the second case. Like until I have all the every possible research nailed, I will decide. So they're actually both extremes. I wanted to say. But you're right. It's more difficult to take the decisions when you have very little information. And also I would say this also is not. You cannot have a rule which applies to every decision again. So I believe there are decisions which are life or death decisions. Like it's a one-way door. You cross that and you cannot go back, right? And if that kind of decision, besides being irreversible, so you just walk back, you cannot go back, it's also really, it's a huge impact. For that decision, you really need a lot of information. You need to ponder, you need to do all the research possible. You need to take as much as time as you have, which is stretching as much as possible until you have a picture which is so clear, or at least as the most clear you can, because once you take that decision, no way back. And if the impact is huge, then, I mean, if it's a wrong decision, it's a huge wrong impact. So in that case, probably is the only case I would say you need a lot of data. Uncertainty will be there, but you need to cover as much as possible everything that you have. The problem with the second type of leader I was describing is that they treat every decision like it is a life or death decision. So they want to have a lot of information for any decision. Like, should I pick today? I had to decide whether to pick a shirt or a black T-shirt for this call. And maybe I should analyze all the podcasts in the world to decide which kind of outfit I should wear today. I mean, that's not really necessary. What's going to happen? What's the impact of my T-shirt in this podcast? Maybe very little. So sometimes there are decisions which they have so little impact, either because they are reversible, so you can change them. Today decide today it's like this. Tomorrow you discover new information, you change the decision. Or maybe they are still irreversible, like the first case, but the impact is I cannot reverse. We are recording today. If I have a black T-shirt now, I cannot switch back to the white shirt, my second option. But the impact is very limited. So okay, I can take the decision with very little information. What makes me more comfortable with that decision based on my expertise on the experience I have. I have experience that I look good in black, so I will take this T-shirt and it's gonna be fine. I mean, and I will record many more podcasts. If this goes wrong, we will have a second, hopefully, appointment together for a next episode, and I will take the white shirt.
Yeah.
So so there are different type of decisions. That's my point here. And people really are undecisive. They treat everything like the life of death one. I want to have all the information. While people on the other side, the few of them which want to side always with speed, they might overlook that there is that one life of that decision, which is really like they should have pondered. It was not about speed, it was about gathering most of the data that you had. And based on the fact that you understand the type of decision that you're taking, then you can rely on, again, your expertise, your best expert guess. You can some type of decisions, maybe the impact is very high, but it's reversible, then I say, okay, take an extra pair of paddles so that if you have to change direction, on the raft, you have them. So you can decide one thing but still be ready to change your mind, which is also a very hard thing for many managers to do. And that comes back to this topic also, that you want to have the most data very often because you want to be sure that you're making the right decision so that you don't have to change your mind, because sometimes changing the mind is felt as a sign of weakness for that leader. But instead, it's a sign of strength. You understood there is a new information around you. And that gives you the freedom of trial and error. So, okay, the impact is high, but there is a way out that we can change at a certain point, switch back or change course. And if you feel like I'm gonna be smart if I take this opportunity, not I'm gonna be stupid because I'm changing my mind, then you can say I can take this decision with a less amount of information. Why? Because I'm always open to changing. There is a very famous example in which I think there was I like the old times of Steve Jobs, and he was actually announcing the iPhone, and he was saying that there will never be a way for developers to put the apps on the phone because it has to be safe. It must be, we care about the safety of the users. It's a very personal device. There will never be. You will always rely on Safari and, I don't know, web apps at the time it was. And it didn't pass 12 months. And they actually made a second conference saying, you know what? We have found a way to keep it safe and to give the developers the opportunity to install apps. Was he stupid to change his mind? No, it led to the biggest.
He changed everything.
Multi-billion business of the App Store, and the success of the iPhone probably is more based on that than the very first iPhone. So, was that decision to keep the iPhone closed based on all the data he had? I don't think so. I think he had a gut feeling. He was caring probably deeply about safety and keeping the iPhone as a very dear closed ecosystem. And he took the decision, but it was reversible. The next year, he understood there was a huge opportunity. And so he said, yes, we find a way to do that, and we change our mind. And that's, I think, very difficult. I have to say, I've not seen it very, very often. We're speaking about, not to make this about stereotyping, but I've worked with a lot of German managers, and that is even more extremely hard for them to change their mind, especially when they do a decision in public. So I think it's hard for anyone, but I was mentioning it because I could really feel their much higher struggle to do that, because saying that admitting that they were wrong, while 6 months before they said that was the best decision in the world, is for them is extremely hard, and for anyone is really hard. And that leads to this: I want to be sure for any decision. So yeah, I would say in a nutshell, my advice is, once you understand that you can change your mind whenever the decision gives you that opportunity, then you automatically reduce your expectation for the amount of certainty that you need, because you know that you're taking maybe a risk, but you still ways to fix it afterwards.
Yeah. That's so useful to take a moment and understand what kind of decision you have to make. Right? Sometimes maybe you don't know, so sometimes you just have to rely on your gut feeling, I guess. Sometimes maybe you will take the wrong decision, and hopefully you will learn from that. But that's also life, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say you most, at least for me, I can talk about myself. I believe I've taken maybe more wrong decisions than right ones at the very first shot. But as you said, as soon as you see that and you can learn from that and you can adjust the result and you can adapt to the result, I think it's a win. Nobody is judging you for how many times you did it right if the last time is wrong, but if they were all wrong, but the last time you nailed it, you got to the result in the end. And if you had the opportunity to adjust the course, that's actually leading you to, in the end, to succeed.
Marco, you have a newsletter. I subscribe to this newsletter, and for everyone that subscribes to the newsletter, they receive a rafted toolkit. What is the toolkit? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. So I more or less see this as this kind of survival kit that I needed on that draft, you know. So I was asking myself, what would I have needed when they throw me in the waters? And so I said, I put together some of the frameworks and tools that I learned along the way, which were helpful. Some of them in the direction of what you were mentioning about taking decisions. There is about delegation, about how to, especially another thing that maybe we didn't touch a lot in the conversation, how to handle the one-to-one with your team, and how to be, for example, handling your triggers, which is another topic which is very important for me, because having that self-awareness is something that could trigger you into, let's say, the wrong reaction is very important. So how do you handle that? How do you train yourself to take that few seconds, which are generally enough to step back and do not react as the very first thing you want to say, which is very often the wrong one in that situation. So it's like a toolbox that, or the gear, if we stick with the raft analogy, that I would give to anyone before they venture into their first role in leadership. So it is, of course, not enough alone, but it's a strong starting point for me that I wanted to give to everyone, so that if you don't know where to look, what to learn, and you don't have the luxury of I had of a mentor to mirror and to learn from him, at least a starting point to take a few of these tools and start applying them. It's thought out also to be a little bit practical, so there are inside some small exercises or a little guide to really apply the concept, trying to be very simple there. But it's one of the things I've learned is that also the knowledge that you read or you listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos, if you don't apply it, then it easily very fast forgotten. So that's how I wanted to structure it. So it's very not a lot of concept, like very as much as simple as possible, and then to have some kind of path to follow. Okay, how do I apply this with your next one-to-one, or when you have to delegate something? So that's the idea behind. Of course, it's at a certain point, you launch things, as we said, and they're probably not perfect or not the best. So I'm looking forward to receive also your feedback about that, since you subscribed. So that maybe I can improve that too. It's a very first version. It's very recent that I've done that. But yeah, I'm always looking forward to add things which maybe are also different challenges that I had at that time, which I didn't consider in this toolkit in the end.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I think it's so complete. I will put it in the description when I will upload a video. But I think one of my favorite part, it's something I still struggle, unfortunately, is the Forte audit. So I'm still working on putting down every week the list of the things that I want to get done that week, and then like making sure that I actually prioritize some of the things that I have to do no matter what that week, and then kind of like match the others around it. So it's something that I'm still working on, because I tend to do something I like more at the beginning and then leave something that I don't like, and I kind of like avoiding it. But it would be better if I would start with that one, probably. And I also I read the book Eat That Frog or something like this, and it still didn't help me. So now I have your toolkit, and I want to try it again.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that you mentioned that, and that was one of the touching what we were saying at the beginning. When I started, the reason why I put that together was that when I started, it felt like I had no time because I had to join all these different product meetings of other products of my team, which I wasn't joining before. And I was not super free anyway before that. So it was really like I didn't know where to turn around sometimes because it was overlapping meetings everywhere. And everybody wanted to have my presence in the meeting. Which is sometimes flattering. That's one of the risks. Like you become a manager, everybody wants you because you're the one taking decisions now, and everybody wants you in their meeting. And so you start joining all the meetings because it's nice. Also, at a certain point, very quickly it becomes not very nice. I can tell everybody. So if you ever experience the nice part, it's the first few weeks, but then very quickly it becomes like you don't know where to go because you're totally overwhelmed. And that was one of the things that actually my boss noticed about me, as I mentioned. And interesting, one thing that I also learned from him, he gave me a book to read. It's a very old book, but still I find it very useful, which is partly also in the Forte framework. The book is called First Things First. It's really a very old book, and it speaks about this Eisenhower matrix, basically. At a certain point, which is in the toolkit, and that means at that time I read the book and I said, okay, now I really have to decide what is important for me to do before others. And that's the goal of that framework. So the real problem we have is that at least in corporate, you get so many priorities from others. Every email you receive is something which is important to them and very often not to you. Every meeting you're invited to, it's somebody else needing you rather than yourself, very often. So if you go along with that all the time, you just do things for others, but which may not be the most important things for you. So, of course, I'm not saying that, again, if the division president invites you, probably the best answer is yes anyway. But the trigger reading that book for me was, first of all, I need a system to assess the importance of the different things. And I need the other step that you need to do as a leader is that you need to know when it's a good also no that you have to say. Because sometimes you really don't have time, even if you list down all your priorities and you do the proper job, sometimes it's really too much anyway. So you have to be understanding that you can and you have to say no, because that no serves your real priorities. If you never do that, I say you go with the current. You're brought somewhere by somebody else, but you're not really steering your raft, because the problem is that you don't know what's important for you, and if you don't know how to get there and which actions you have to do. So once you understand that and you give yourself a method, I suggest one in this framework, but you can give yourself any method in the end to say what activities deserve your time and priority. Then what has really helped me in that framework that I can say I would really strongly suggest everybody to use is to block your time to do those things. That's the most important thing. Because the problem with to-do lists very often is that, okay, I write my priorities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I want to do them this week. But if they are a to-do list, first of all, you don't know maybe how long it's going to take each of them. And secondly, you haven't defined a set time in which you're going to do that. And that comes to the result that everybody else will send you invitations for the meetings and you will join the meetings. And then at the end of the week, you still have your 5 to-dos, which were very important. And you didn't have time because of all the meetings to tackle. So what has worked for me is really that. So once I have a method to decide the priority and which one I really, as you said, I want to get done these 3 things this week. Okay, this I will do on Monday from 10 to 11. This I will do on Tuesday from 9 to 10 and so on. Because then you really give yourself the task in your calendar. If you work in corporate, that's usually necessary, that you're blocked and you can focus on that. And that's how I, in the end, managed myself to get over the overwhelming and of all the meetings and start to get done things which were really having an impact. And as more as you get into leadership, some of those things are really dedicating time for your team. Nobody is going to tell you, spend 1 hour with Larisa and understand what her aspirations are and what her goals are and what she would like to achieve in career, maybe in life, and help her in this process. If you never give yourself that task and you set the time aside to do that conversation, you will never do that. And that's at the end, the end result that I would like to achieve with the forte is, yes, you gain control of your time applying the framework, but also start understanding that some of our priority is not any longer for me the product requirement, but it's having this conversation and understand where you want to be and how I can help you growing in that direction.
Yeah. And what if the person of your team says that they want to leave your team? Maybe it's not a good idea to have this kind of meeting, you know? I'm kidding.
You're no, you're generally right. Is not nice to have those meetings. I can tell you that the first one for me was pretty shocking. I was on a business trip. I still remember that. I was in Saudi Arabia actually, and I received this call from one of my person in the team, and he told me, "Look, Marco, I decided to leave the team. I received a good offer from another company, and I want to take it." And yeah, I have to say, in that moment, I really felt failure. Like, you know, I've done something really wrong here because uh, why would he leave? And I also felt like a little bit of anger because, as I said, he was really a very strong one in the team, and I felt like, how am I gonna do to replace this person, and what we will do in the meantime, and so on. And I was actually also the other side of the word, so I was like,
Not
what,
helping.
what should I do now, and so on. And as I said, at least in that case, I found that this exit strategy, at least for myself, to say, yeah, but they offered him a lot of money, so probably is that the reason. I don't know whether I emotionally needed. It was the first time happened to me. Probably I needed that kind of relief emotionally. Is not my fault in the end. He's leaving. Okay, it's a corporation. He doesn't like our company. They offered him a lot of money and so on. But I have to say today, it would be really different because I learned something from that experience. Because a few weeks after that, a colleague of mine, we were having this conversation and we went to the topic of this guy leaving. And I said what I just told you. I said, yeah, but ABB, and in this moment, it's the reorganization, it's critical. Probably they offered him the car and more money and of obvious choice, and he left. And he asked me, he said, yeah, all of that is probably true. But have you asked yourself what was your impact on that decision? And that made me reflect on that. And that I realized I had an impact. I was mentioning that earlier in this call. I wasn't dedicated enough time to the team. That was that was maybe not the only reason. But what I learned later is that if you really dedicate yourself to the team and help them grow, they will not leave so easily, even if they get a huge offer. I mean, there are life opportunities always. And even so, I have to say that when you mature in that direction, when they get this life opportunity, you have that mindset that you want to help them to get that opportunity. You don't look any longer what is going to happen to my team. And maybe I had later on more experience. I knew better how to handle those situations that might have contributed as well. But you start thinking, is this opportunity the right one for this person? Because if it is, my job is to help him get it. And even maybe my company shouldn't listen to that, but even if it implies that he leaves the company, but it's really the best for him, I feel to be a real leader if I help him in that, because I think that's a natural thing that you want, that he can grow even further. I had one person later on. He was really exceptional. You could see he was really super talented. I mean, there was everybody was noticing it. And at a certain point, this life opportunity came. And I had in myself the answer. I went to my boss, the same one as before, and I asked him, like, look, Paolo went to me and said that he wants to leave. And he said, and he answered me, what do you want to do? And I said, I think we have no way to keep him. He's really very, very strong, and this is a very, very opportunity for him to jump, and we will not be able to give him this opportunity. And then he said, yes, you're right. And he went to the other company in the end. And I think it felt better, because if I would have fought against it, most likely I would have lost anyway, but with a much worse feeling, because I was not helping him, and I would have lost the fight. And when you lose, you're not very happy. I don't mean it's about losing or winning, but I mean in the end, sometimes it's the best decision for them. And that happens very often. I see this dynamic. Now let's remove for a moment living for another company, but internally I see a lot this dynamic in which managers try to protect their team, also in the way that they don't want to give up the best and most highest performance to other teams within the same organization. And that, I think, it's in the end is not a good thing. You are limiting the growth of your team, and also of the organization itself overall, because probably if this person does a step up in another team, the whole organization will benefit as well.
At the end of the day, we are all human beings, and if somebody is happier somewhere else, then it means that at least they should have the chance to try it out. And you never know, maybe they will come back at some point to the company anyways with more experience. So
that's true. That's very true. Yes, maybe they come back, and many times they come back for that leader who's helped them in that journey. So yeah.
Marco, we are so much over time, but it's been such a pleasure to talk with you. Like, I didn't even realize how long we've been talking. I only have one last question. What kind of leader are you still trying to become?
Yeah, I've been reflecting on this question a lot, and first of all, one thing that I learned in my journey is that really leadership is a journey, is something that you continue learning. I don't see there is ever an end point to this. So okay, now I become a leader, and somehow that's probably true for many things, but especially for leadership. What I'm honestly trying to do as much as possible is finding new ways to share what I know. This is also about the toolkit we mentioned, and sharing my knowledge around. Because maybe one thing that has changed with me across the years has been that I have been always very much focused on my close team, which is good. I mean, I think they definitely deserve it, and it doesn't mean I'm focusing less on them. But now more and more I see the opportunity to share more with others, what I know, to help others outside of my close organization. That's one thing that I'm trying to do. Also, because it becomes vice versa learning for me. This conversation, I have learned a lot. I've digged a lot in my past and memories, and realized things which maybe I haven't thought until now, and having met you and so on. And I believe there is a lot to grow in this process of sharing what you know, sharing your experience, and that has been my goal for the last, I would say, year or so, to try to somehow, maybe as a vision, to move leadership closer to what I believe it should be, the service to others, more than managing teams in the end, which has been maybe a lot more in the past. And I see this also other push from the younger generations, which are very criticized sometimes, but I see a strong push from them, which is really beneficial. There is now more this expectation, and this is exciting for me, I think, as well. So I'm going in that direction, I have to say, sharing more, and trying to push leadership in this direction of being more of a service rather than managing or having authority over others.
And I hope I can amplify that. And I hope as many people as possible will listen to this conversation, because it's been so energetic. I've learned so much, and I will definitely apply some of the things that you mentioned. First of all, on delegation, but also how I organize myself. And if I will ever be a leader in the future, then I know who to come to get some advice.
Thank you. And I really wish you have a lot of success with this podcast. I think it's a very, very great initiative. with the goal. I love the title also. Be teachable is really something which is really close to me. And it's really one of the best skills you can find in people, because if you are teachable, you can really learn, improve. If you keep this curiosity, it's really great. And I wish you have a lot of success with this podcast, really. Besides maybe amplifying this leadership concept, which is also close to me, but in general, I would say.
Thank you so much.
Same for you. Wish you a great weekend, and thank you a lot for the conversation today.
Like all good things, this conversation eventually comes to an end. Marco reminded me that leadership is far less about perfection and far more about being human than we often assume. It's easy to believe that great leaders are the ones who always know what to do. Instead, Marco showed that great leaders are the ones who stay curious, listen carefully, adapt when new information emerges, and aren't afraid to change their minds when it's the right thing to do. I also realized something else while reflecting on this series. The skills we talked about, delegation, coaching, decision-making, aren't isolated leadership techniques. They're all rooted in the same intention: helping other people succeed while continuing to grow yourself. That, to me, it's what makes leadership so fascinating. There is always another lesson to learn, another perspective to consider, and another opportunity to become just a little bit better than yesterday. And before we wrap up this leadership series, I just want to thank you for coming along on this journey. If you watch all 3 episodes, I hope you've taken away some practical leadership advice, but also a different way of thinking about growth, learning, and the impact we can all have on the people around us. And if you did, I'd love to hear from you. Looking back at this entire series, which insight resonated with you the most, or what made you change your mind on something? Please share it in the comments. I love reading your perspective, and I hope we can continue the conversation there. And if you think someone else would benefit from this conversation, I'd really appreciate if you can share the series with them. Thank you for spending your time with us. Until the next conversation. And until then, stay curious, stay teachable,